It's round two. We've got 55 wideouts ranked and tiered with a bunch of sad mid-ass receiving lines for maximum depression. So before Sunday, let's break down these wide receiver rankings for the fantasy playoffs. Welcome to E&M Fantasy Football, presented by ErvinandM.com, where I combine industry-leading data, Vegas, sportsbooks, and expert analysis to provide you with optimal weekly rankings for the utmost accuracy when setting your weekly lineups in your fantasy football league. I'm writing this on Wednesday night for Thursday's video. Expect more videos every week for the other unit groupings like running back, quarterback, and tight end. And click the playlist for all of those rankings for week 16. To start off the top 55 wide receivers this week. Full PPR. The S tier is once again only 80 yards or more. There's only 4. Jamar Chase, 87 over-under, but 101 yards per game against Cleveland's 11th best. Puka Nacua, 84 over-under, 89 yards per game against the Jets' 5th best. Justin Jefferson, 81 over-under, 89 yards per game against Seattle's 13th best. And Nico Collins, 82 over-under, 94 yards per game against Kansas City's 14th best. These guys are the only ones projected by sportsbooks to go anywhere near 80 yards or more. That is the highest amount for this week. They have the best matchups with the most productivity. They are your elite S-tier wideouts. A-tier begins with the other elite wide receivers. They are projected for 70 to 80 receiving yards each. A.J. Brown, 74 over-under, 86 yards per game. Who's his best friend? You already know. Media is dumb. Sirianni is dumb. But Jalen and Arthur Juan are not. They face Washington's 4th best, and the total is good with Philly favored away from home. Cedarian DeLeon Lamb, 71 over-under, 78 yards per game. Cooper Rush, doesn't matter. Hurt shoulder, doesn't matter. Tampa Bay's 30th worst secondary is perhaps all that matters. Lock him in. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 69 over-under, 75 yards per game. 20 players injured? Doesn't matter. Lions are still projected by practically a whole touchdown to destroy Chicago and their 19th back 7. Total's tied for the second highest of the week. Mike Evans, 70 over-under, 68 yards per game. This is the highest scoring game of the week, ladies and gentlemen. That's right, Baker and Rush are dueling this week with a 48.5 point total. And Dallas is 21st against the pass. Don't be scared sliding in the future Hall of Famer, Michael Lynn Evans. Devontae Adams, 72 over-under, 78 yards per game. Who's his best friend? That's right. Rodgers is confusing all of us with his late showing end of season, but rest assured, if nothing else, he's going to throw a dozen bombs to Devontae against the 19th worst Rams secondary. JSN. The total sucks. This is going to be a brutal game for the Seahawks. 65 over-under, 71 yards per game. They're only dogs by 3. And as far as JSN is concerned, they have one of the worst pass defenses in the league that they get to face, the 29th Minnesota Vikings. Gino's going to play. JSN will be okay. T. Higgins, 69 over-under, 74 yards per game. Cleveland's 11th best is a bit scary, but not scary enough, as the Bengals are still 7.5 point favorites while being tied for the second highest scoring game of the week. Meaning they have the highest implied team total of the week. So, eat your heart out. BTJ, 70 over-under, 68 yards per game. Trevor Lawrence, doesn't matter. McCorkle Jones, it doesn't matter. BTJ is a beast, and he doesn't care about the Raiders' 9th best secondary either. BTJ is the best player for either team. And aside from him, the rest is going to be horrible. Worst total of the week, 1 point spread. Don't watch the game. Pray for BTJ. The B tier begins with more starters, but with projections from 60 to 70 receiving yards. And we'll kick it off with ErvinandM.com. ErvinandM.com is my company my best friend and I started in 2020. We literally make everything ourselves by hand. We have earrings, rings, necklaces, bracelets, tie clips, apparel, and more. Over a dozen curated gemstones and 100 handcrafted products. If you need a gift or something special for yourself, use the promo code in the description, find something you love, and buy it today. Now back to the video. If you like spending money and looking good, this is my store. Buy some jewelry, some shirts or a hat, for God's sakes. Loaders. But if you don't, subscribe. It's free. And it's Malik Neighbors to start us off. 67 over under, 75 yards per game. And you know who has the worst implied team total of the week? That's right. The New York Giants. Will they fire everyone? Probably. Is Malik their only hope against ATL's 24th worst back seven as 10-point dogs? Yes. Yes, he is. Clyde McConkey, 67 over under, 67 yards per game. He faces the league average Broncos secondary in LA in another disgusting, low-scoring, albeit close game. He should be okay, though, for fantasy with 9 targets in his last 4 games. Portland Sutton, 62 over under, 63 yards per game. I mean, he's got a harder path on the other side of the ball from old McConkey here, but he, too, is their best player facing off against the Chargers' 10th best. He should be okay with his 9+ targets per game as well. GL. Jacoby Myers, 64 over under, 67 yards per game. This is the easiest matchup possible. He gets to catch against the worst back seven in the league. And even though both of these teams are horrible, Myers is not. Neither is his 9 targets per game. Terry McLaurin, 65 over under, 69 yards per game. Scary Terry finally faces something equally scary. Philly's number 1 secondary and number 1 total defense. They get to slug it out at home. And he just played the Titans secondary, who allowed him 9 targets and 73 yards. So he'll probably be okay. And this is where you start to get worried. Tyreek Hill, 66 over under, 57 yards per game. The Dolphins are barely favored at home with an okay total. However, San Fran's second best secondary, coupled with Hill's injury, and the Dolphins' O-line has been devastating. Vegas thinks he'll be okay. Pray he gets loose at least once. Garrett Wilson, 63 over under, 67 yards per game. Is it bad that Wilson is not A-Rod's best friend? Yes. Yes, it is. Does 6 targets make us nervous? A little bit. We want 10 targets again. But that's probably not going to happen, even though the Rams are below average against the pass. Nobody knows. Good luck. Drake London, 64 over under, 66 yards per game. I mean, good Lord. Does Penix hurt London? Yes. Is the Giants' 7th best secondary hurt him even more? Probably, at least equally as much. Does it make us feel any better that the Giants on one side of the field have allowed 100% of wideouts to go over in their contests? A little bit, but not really. Which brings us to the 50s and greater concern, actual concern. You feel pretty good about these guys. From here, it gets stinky very quickly. Jordan Addison, 52 over under, in spite of 64 yards per game. I mean, it's nearly 7 receptions in his last 4 games and 103 yards per game across those contests. Seattle is a tough secondary. They boast the 13th best, but he's the only one out of the whole entire rest of these groups that you feel good about. DK Metcalf, 65 over under, 70 yards per game. He's questionable, but he should play. What's really concerning is 59 yards, 66 yards, 49 yards, and 28 yards across his last 4 games, and less than 6 targets. The only upside is the Vikings' 29th worst back 7. Will 4 receptions be enough? Probably not, unless 50 yards is your goal. Zay Flowers, 59 over-under, 65 yards per game. 7 targets per game is okay. 4.7 receptions is Pittsburgh's below-average back 7 is very enticing, and they are 6.5-point favorites at home for this one. So, GL. Juwan Jennings, 58 over-under, 67 yards per game. Miami's 8th best is scary. The total is okay, and it's a close game. If Purdy wants that sweet, sweet contract, he's going to pepper Jennings with 8 targets, hopefully. Hopefully he catches them all. 2 receptions, not going to cut it. But you know what's worse? 0. Cooper Kupp, 57 over-under, 66 yards per game. Oh, Lord. Lord. Kupp, brother, 3 for 0 is terrible. I'm assuming you survived the Kupp-pocalypse from last week, and I can't tell you to start this man this week. It's the Jets' 5th best. His targets have been okay, but his production has been on a decline. Flip a coin. Jerry Jeudy, 63 over-under, 75 yards per game. But how bad is DTR? Very, very bad. But 8 for 11 is pretty good. The Bengals' defense is really bad at 27th. Who's worse? DTR, for sure. Is Jameis going to start? He better. And if he doesn't, don't play Jeudy. Devonta Smith, 54 over-under, 60 yards per game. 5 receptions is not great, but he makes the most of it. What's more, Washington's 4th best secondary is not great either. Very scary. He's boom or bust, and it's worth mentioning last time he faced Washington, he only netted 29 yards. Calvin Ridley, 59 over-under, 56 yards per game. He barely takes the last spot in the tier here. Gets the below-average Colts secondary, and that is promising. However, 4 receptions and 48 yards across his last 3 games is not. From here, it's more 50s, and it's still some whiteout 1s, some whiteout 2s, but their passing offenses are lackluster or they're playing from behind. It's tragic and grueling. Adam Thielen, 52 over-under, 60 yards per game. 7 receptions over his last 3 games is good. 5 in his last game is not that great. Arizona's just below league average against the pass, and 80% of wideouts were able to go over against them, so 50 to 60 yards isn't that far-fetched for Thielen. DJ Moore, 59 over-under, 54 yards per game. Moore has remained under in 9 of 14 contests this season. Very bad. Only a few have been 60 or more, which makes it even worse. The only hope is that Detroit's injured 26th worst back 7 will allow him to do something, but I wouldn't bet on it. Darnell Mooney, 52 over-under, 62 yards per game. Look, it's going to be Penix. And while it doesn't seem like it could get a lot worse than Cousins, it most certainly can. And I'm not saying Penix is trash, but the Giants' 7th best are going to do everything they can to ruin his day and everyone else not named Bijan. And they probably will. And we'll go back-to-back with the Packers boys, Jaden Reed and Christian Watson. 50 over-under, 52 yards for Reed, 52 over-under, 48 yards for Watson. Look, we all know they're boom or bust. Saints are awful against the pass, but it offers a little comfort when it comes to fantasy. But, down-to-earth reminder. It's 3.5 receptions and 52 yards for Reed and 2.2 receptions for 48 yards for Watson. Jesus Christ. MHJ, 53 over-under, 49 yards per game. I mean, 3.4 receptions, and it's been 47 yards, 60, 49, 32 yards in his last 4 games. He faces Carolina's 12th best secondary. Find someone else to flex. Keenan Allen, 52 over-under, 46 yards per game. I mean, 6 receptions from 13 targets is not good. 4.4 receptions per game is even worse. There's a chance against Detroit's 26th worst, but good Lord, he is a huge risk. He could get 70 or he could get 30. Josh Downs, 51 over-under, 57 yards per game. Colts stink. AR-15 stinks, at least as far as throwing the ball. Tennessee's 3rd best is going to be harassing Downs all game. It's been 3 receptions and 30 yards in his last 2 games. Flex someone else. From here, though, it's as dicey as it gets. They're barely startable. Beware. It's 40 to 50 yards. It's Khalil Shakir. 47 over-under, 59 yards per game. I mean, it's the same for Khalil. 39 or 106, 70 or 30. Only God knows what'll happen against the league average Patriots back 7. 5.5 receptions on 6.8 targets. I mean, it's barely acceptable. MPJ, 48 over-under, 47 yards per game. 4 receptions from 7 targets is also barely acceptable. It's been 60 yards per game in his last 4, but his matchup against the Titans this week is horrendous. Last time they played, he went for 35 yards. J-Mo, 48 over-under, 62 yards per game. It's been 64, and then 28, and then 80, followed by 37. I mean, he scores, I tell you, 40% of the time, so flip a coin. His matchup is fine against the Bears. Lions are heavy favorites. I don't know. Romeo Doubs, 42 over-under, 48 yards per game. 40 yards, 54 yards, 17 yards, 28 yards, and 3 receptions per game. I mean, don't pray for a touchdown like someone else. Rashad Bateman, 38 over-under, 47 yards per game. I mean, it just continues, boys. 2.7 receptions, and it'll either be 0 for or 30 or 43 for 80. I mean, his tutties are a coin flip just like him. Like someone else. D-Hop, 41 over-under, 40 yards per game. 5 targets and 3 receptions for Nuck against Houston's 6th best. I mean, what are we doing? What are we talking about? Flex someone else. Rome Odunze, flex someone else. From here, though, I mean, it's over. Deebo Samuel. Jalen McMillan, you know what I'm saying? Oh, buy something, please. Jalen Coker, Tank Dell, Amari, Xavier, QJ, Pop. I mean, it doesn't matter. There they are. Your top wideouts for this week. Good luck. It's quarterbacks and tight ends tomorrow, and if you missed running backs, click the playlist. I sincerely hope this helps everyone watching. Subscribe and turn on post notifications so you get all these videos, all of these updates and news before submitting your lineups on Sunday. It's free. It's a good value. And if you like looking good and spending money, spend it at my store. And watch some more videos!